A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. I am Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning from Abuja and welcome to the program. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Well, welcome to the nation's commercial capital, Lagos. I'm Kayode Okikelu, and look who's here.
Yes, indeed. I'm here, Kayode. And the one who does the date check is not here, but suffice it to say that it's December the 8th, a beautiful Thursday morning.
Absolutely.
Good morning, and welcome to Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
Oh, yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, look, well, I'm not sure, definitely not everybody thought that the last must have been heard about this CBN's cashless policy, or CBN's withdrawal policy, whatever policy, however they describe it. On the floor of the Senate, for instance, some senators are not exactly clear. Some outrightly saying, no, this has to be reconsidered. The motion moved by Senator Philip Aduda on the matter. But overall, it turns out that they say, look, we don't have a lot of information about this. Just as we did highlight yesterday, we'd like to understand a little bit more about the thinking of those who came up with the policy in terms of what was the rationale behind announcing those category of decisions that the CBN took. So tomorrow, I think it's today actually, today, tomorrow, thereabout. So they are expected, when those names that the president has submitted to the Senate for extension or continuation or renewal of their tenure as deputy governors of the CBN, when they do arrive the Senate, the team have been directed to ensure that they ask them a lot more questions so that they can understand how they arrived at that decision in the light of reactions coming through from a lot of quarters, which we'll also get to see how the dailies are reflecting all of this. But, well, I guess up until that time, we'll just wait and see. But at the moment, that is how it is going to play out. Much as you'll always have those who will say, look, from the way they see it, they think it will be a good one, especially when we haven't actually seen the kind of effect it will have. But our situation here, I must tell you, is kind of unique. But I just wonder, I'd like to equally hear the rationale behind all of those before I could come to any form of conclusion whatsoever, I reckon.
Well, we've been told that the CBN does have a robust research department, so they don't just take knee-jerk reactions. They would have weighed the implications before they reach the decision. So we'll wait to see how they defend that in front of the Senate, because I was going to say in front of the politicians, because we must also remember, yes, even though by the time people begin to assume roles such as senators and members of the House of Reps, they moved a step higher than politics. It should be beyond politics. It now becomes about the state, about the country, about the nation. And so oftentimes a lot of things should be done from the prism, or should be seen from the prism of patriotism and nationalism and what's best for the country. But I think that at the end of the day, we mustn't also forget that it is a season of politics, and largely these people will be going back to go and play the politics to either return to the Senate for those of them who have tickets, or play the politics within their political parties, as the case might be. So we'll see how that eventually plays out, whether there will be support, whether the CBN will be able to robustly defend the policy which it has come up with, and whether that policy will be able to get support from within the Senate of the country. We'll see. I want to believe that the grilling will be transparently done in such a way that Nigerians can make up their mind whether they've been adequately represented or whether the senators were pursuing a different ambition. I think that should be, clearly spelled out for all to see. But at this time, let us see. We can only wait and see. We can only rely on time to see what eventually happens when the deputy governors of the central bank, who will be going in for tenure extension or renewal, as the case might be, take on questions from the senators. But it's certainly a conversation that a lot of Nigerians will be interested in, because it will certainly affect how they do business and how they, how they work or live within the economy by the time all is said and done. Kayode and Bukola.
Yes, indeed, Maokwe. Whether the senators would be pursuing a different ambition, it's a very interesting point. In fact, a key one to pick up on this morning, because politicians are the big spenders. They're the ones with the high denominations in currencies. They're the ones also, suffice it to say this morning, with the foreign currencies. So it is significant to note, some of the opposing views that are coming in from the Senate as far as the new, CBN policies are concerned. About the research department, that has come up with this policy from the CBN. I wonder if they will be accompanying the deputy governor, governorship nominees that will be appearing before the Senate for, a defense of these policies. But it appears, though, that on paper, it has been well thought out, considering the objectives that these new policies hope to, check, kidnappers who demand currencies in higher denominations, and then their victims are at their mercy, and then they have to, go withdraw the money to, pay ransom and all of that. So it appears good on paper. I'm not one, to be a major in economics, but there are some key questions to ask. And I think we might even find them on the front pages this morning. Stakeholders in the economy are saying it will lead to job losses. The POS operators are saying that it's going to put them out of business. I also imagine that, petty traders, small and medium scale businesses who deal with daily cash collection and perhaps deposits, how is this going to affect them? These are some of the things that we should consider. When you visit the market, oftentimes, perhaps on a weekly basis, and you have to deal with these people, they insist on, payment of money in cash. So when we're going cashless, how will this impact on the economy, on an economy that runs, on daily, cash payments, the use of hard cash? These are some of the things that we should consider. And these are some of the questions that we should ask, the economists who understand, how these things work. Kayode, I wonder how you're weighing in on this.
Well, it's a lot, really, honestly. When you put it together, it's really a lot. And I think it's just perfect timing that the screening of those deputy governors will be happening at this time. So it looks like they have given them some advance notice as to the areas that they will be screened based on, or at least the areas that will be discussed. Maybe this will not affect the outcome of their screening, whether or not they'll be passed. Looks like most times they'll definitely be passed. But at least this presents an opportunity to have some sort of deliberation, some sort of interaction on this policy. It has been approved, whether we like it or not. Now, the issue is implementation, the buy-in of a lot of Nigerians. And I think it's important. I mean, the Senate can simply just have this beamed live to Nigerians, even beyond, I know they have this streaming platform on YouTube, but also go beyond that, ensure that everybody is a part of this, so they can know the thinking behind this. I remember we had Mr. Aye yesterday, and we're trying to ask, what sort of thinking goes into this sort of decision at that level? Yes, there's an element of surprise, which CBN will try to always, it's an edge, naturally. You want to have that element of surprise, so you hit them, they never see you coming, and then people when they try to grapple with it, you're already miles ahead. But for the as we say, everyday Nigerian, the average Nigerian, honestly, these people just want to do business. They just want to purchase things and do it easily. Whether or not this will be tested in court is another thing entirely, because people are saying, isn't it my cash? Can't I choose to have, whichever volume I want per time? That's another case entirely. But something happened last week, and I really hope that this has been factored in. I know this is meant to take effect from 9th of January, but last week, I don't know about Nigerians, but I had challenges using just not one bank app, 2 bank apps. And, imagine you're trying to do that transfer. You're trying to pay just quickly at that point, and it's important. I don't know if it's for health reasons, if it's maybe your vehicle broke down, if it's for some sort of emergency. And I kept trying to use those bank apps, and they were not working. So imagine that that's the only option you have. And I mean, for me, I don't carry cash around these days. You'll be lucky if you find 1,000 naira on me. Right now, I have just 200 naira in my pocket, and it's been there for weeks, and it probably still and it will stay there for even longer. But that's the reality for a lot of Nigerians. So imagine, I kept trying to do that transfer, that payment, and it was not working. So is that what we're going to be jumping into? So I really do hope that before this takes full effect on the 9th of January, these issues are resolved. Well, maybe a way to go for a lot of Nigerians, but the implementation of it, from the banks to the merchants to the traders, which you talked about, it is very important, and time is of the essence. Don't judge me, by the way. 200 is money, guys.
Well, 200 is what will be loaded into the ATMs,
exactly.
As a matter of fact. So maybe, you never know, really. But I guess we'll wait and see. As a matter of fact, let's even just delve right into the dailies. They've got a lot of focus on some of these matters. So let's start off with the Guardian newspaper this time. CBN's cash withdrawal limits. That's the theme here with the Guardian today. Agents in uproar as Senate debates new policy Tuesday. Oh, Tuesday. Oh dear.
Well, some say it's next week, but some say it's tomorrow. So we'll see. I think we can.
When they appear, the nominees appear, they will ask questions. So I remember on the floor of the House,
of the Senate,
the Senator from Benue also did say, look, the Senate needed to debate this matter. So there are 2 different things. If the committee listens to it, I think they'll fit the committee as a whole, and then probably they can then debate it. But now they say here categorically, they will debate the policy Tuesday. Because the President of the Senate also in that same breath did say he was advising the CBN not to jump into it as such, because in his words, many Nigerians will be affected. Those are the words. So affected, perhaps being the operational word. You need to find out how that eventually turns out. So, but look at the writers here. They want us out of business. Mobile money agents lament. Policy good, but implementation will be difficult. BCAN. You need to find out which organization is BCAN. Hiroa, cash withdrawal limits can't help Naira depreciation. Will lead to job losses, which is what a lot of people, they keep talking about all of these things. But yeah, I mean, the apps, even the ATMs, they've got their challenges. At the crucial times when you need to use them, it fails. It doesn't work at that time. And so, of course, factor in people who have emergencies. For instance, if you go to hospitals, you have to deposit a certain amount of money before they can attend to you, depending on the kind of case you have. And in many cases, usually above the withdrawal limits,
the hospitals should have POSs. The hospitals should have POSs which you can use. The problem is some businesses do not like to use POSs because they also get charged for that particular service.
And some, they might be big outlets like that, but then they have only one for a lot of traffic, which usually is insufficient in many cases. So all of those issues, anyway, we'll wait and see the research that the research department has carried out. We'll hear them out when they appear before the Senate. Well, assuming them, of course, they must have factored in all of these responses. So we'll get to hear their response to all of this agitation, so which is not new to them since they've done a lot of research on these matters. So, that's the big one here on the front page this morning. So,
and expected to be the big one on the front page of many of the dailies this morning, because look at what leadership is saying. They are drawing no distinction. I like how they couch it. Politicians move against CBN cash withdrawal policy. So I don't know what this is talking about. I don't think they're talking about the senators. I think they're talking in general, about maybe the resistance, where the strongest resistance is coming from. Politicians move against CBN cash withdrawal policy. Senate, that's what one of the writers says. Senate rejects 100K per week. Yes, 400,000 naira per week. Invite CBN governor for explanation on Tuesday. Threatens 100 agencies with zero allocation over 1.9 trillion naira service-wide vote. CNPP tackles critics of new CBN withdrawal limit. Okay, so
CNPP, that's a conference of
political parties, eh?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So maybe
different strokes.
Exactly. Not all politicians are in that bracket. Page 4 is where you find details. Keep an open mind. I think that's the most important thing. Until we hear how this is supposed to work and, just what because oftentimes it's in the periods of difficulties that opportunities come up and you find new businesses creeping up to meet the deficiencies. You go to even some small businesses, they have like over 4 POSs from different companies. And they are very certain that one of them works better than, even the rest. But hey, what do I know? Page 4 is where you'll find the details on that particular story. You also see this. We have recovered 120 billion naira from crime proceeds, as according to the federal government. Why Nigeria is Africa's best investment hub from the Vice President. Alleged NPower fraud. ICPC detains Dibanj. I think his lawyer responded yesterday that we shouldn't jump to conclusions. But if you look just beneath the nameplate, this is a very troubling story and points to our wastefulness. Nigeria loses billions of naira as customs e-auction platform collapses. The story is about what they call that now. It's about customs e-auction platform, which has collapsed, and as a result, a lot of goods and goods in general, perishables and non-perishables, are perishing away in the yard of the Nigerian Customs Service as a result of the collapse of the e-platform. So there needs to be a second
That's in the
look.
same family of the cashless, you remember?
It's not just in the same, yes, well, electronically speaking, but if you look at how we treat a lot of things that we seize, you see the EFCC, seizing properties. What do they do about those properties? When they eventually secure final forfeiture orders for them, do they dispose of them with dispatch? Are those accounted for as part of the revenue that the Federation generates? If cars and goods and things that can be useful to the Nigerian people, if they're perishing away in Nigeria customs quarters to the point where they become unusable, of what good is that?
And do we even have to allow that happen? Because we're not living this world in isolation. There's several countries that have examples. When these properties are under investigation, why do we have to seal them? Why do we have to sack everybody in those companies for the most part of it? Why do those things deteriorate in those places when the country keeps talking about paucity of funds? Can't whoever, if it's an administration, the proceeds keeps going to those agencies and it keeps running? So why can't we do that? So
I don't know. It bits my mind. But, just in case we don't understand what we're talking about, to put it in context for us, poverty stings despite federal government's 3.5 trillion naira social intervention. So,
there you go.
Big questions there. I mean, the face of Madam National Disaster and Human. What was that now?
Short for short, Madam Minister.
Madam Minister's face, yes. Madam Poverty Alleviation Minister's face is right there as well. So maybe she would like to respond to that at some point. 3.5 trillion naira social.
Will that be the day?
Interventions. We'll wait and see, Chamberlain.
Okay.
Indeed, we'll wait and see. But while we wait and see, here's, what appears to be an outcome of, the poverty indices and efforts by the administration to get the economy up and running. And of course, it's been met with a lot of debate, as you heard in our conversation as we started off. This is how the Daily Trust newspaper captions it. The big story is rendered thus: cash withdrawal limit, businesses will collapse. That's ascribed to senators. Let's take a look at the riders. We can't go cashless in a hurry. That's the Senate president speaking. This is the second one. It'll kill our business. POS operators, and CNPP backs policy. If you want more details of that, it's inside page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Let's take a look at some other stories that just may interest you. Nigeria must end insecurity for smooth electoral process. That's ascribed to the British government, and it's a page 12 read this morning. Kayode, I don't know if you get a sense of the concern, which seems more like near interference in Nigeria's electoral process every election cycle, during every election cycle by the international community. It's not the same, from Africa to Western countries during their own election cycle. So it gives a sense that, African countries can get it right by themselves.
Absolutely.
During the electioneering processes.
It reminds me of what happened recently with that security advisory. And Nigeria also advising, citizens abroad saying, be careful, there are thieves and all of that. And people coming to speak about the expresses. So these things actually happen. In the US, they had elections that was, a lot of people said this wasn't done right. They had issues with it. Even one of the major candidates.
And African
issues.
Countries weren't breathing down their neck. Just something worth thinking about this morning. Let's take a look at some more stories. You'll find this one right beneath the one we just discussed. $2 billion airlines funds trapped in 27 countries. That's ascribed to IATA. A little wonder the aviation sector is in crisis. And this one is very interesting. Well, before we get to that one, there's this one, Ogoni cleanup. FG identifies 635 hectares of contaminated shoreline. That's page 6, inside page 6. We're just chatting earlier about, when Ogoni cleanup was launched, sometime into the end of the first term of this administration.
2016.
And 6 years down the line, we're still here having the conversation about the Ogoni cleanup. Why hasn't progress been made? Environment of the people of the Niger Delta has been degraded, has been, contaminated. Their means of livelihood, have gone down the drain. And we wonder why, now and again we'll find unrest in that part of the country.
Not far-fetched.
Not far-fetched. And lastly, expect Christian ticket in future. That's ascribed to the wife of the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress. Sounds like a negotiation. I don't know what you think, Kadi, but I wonder if your paper captured.
What I think? Well, I'm thinking we have to take Nigerian Tribune next.
Yes.
We'll talk about these things if they come up, definitely, during the course of the program. But take a look at Nigerian Tribune with this one for you. Of course, it's on the CBN's cash withdrawal limit. And it says, Senate expresses worry, set to debate policy. So, this is consistent across all front pages. The debate is set for Tuesday, but the screening is meant to be before the end of the week. So, maybe that clears the date for Nigerians. Threatens to withhold 2023 capital budget of 100 MDAs. Now, that's another issue entirely. Policy will have tax implication for individuals, MSMEs, tax experts. Some have even said that this is in a bid to capture all transactions within the system such that government can say, okay, we tax this, so maybe more revenue for government. Who knows? But take a look at what's just at the top right corner. Unlike APC, PDP will not fail Osun. That's coming from the presidential candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar. Pledges constitutional role for traditional rulers. Labour governorship candidate joins PDP. Yeah, that was a major one yesterday. And of course, another side to that Christian ticket now, as it's been dubbed, is Muslim ticket to set new tone in Nigeria's political landscape come 2023. Tinubu's wife. So that's also another angle. I'll just take one more story for you. By the way, the big picture on the front page shows EFCC auctioning 435 forfeited cars here in Lagos. I don't know if you were part of that. Let us know. How was the process for you? Because I can see crowd, and I can imagine someone listening to us was part of that crowd. And just this one, 25 held in Germany over suspected coup plot. You heard that right. So, I mean, we've not even heard about this in Nigeria since the start of the Fourth Republic. But, I mean, this is Germany. So you have these issues across the world. I mean, some just manage, the information, their image better than the other. Let's do that for the Nigerian Tribune.
All right, take a look at New Telegraph next. FG recovers 120 billion naira from corrupt Nigerians. Says UNEP reports implementation on Ogoniland on course. ICPC detains the Banj over alleged NPower fraud. FG debunks allegations, assures beneficiaries of commitment. Well, you need to read this story to put it in proper context, what this really is about. But above this lead story, fuel crisis deepens as marketers give NNPCL ultimatum over price. Well, you'd have thought that they should have been on the same page, or they should be on the same page. But now, the NNPCL is giving the marketers are giving the NNPCL a 7-day ultimatum to allow them buy the product at the approved price, the regulated official price of 148 naira per liter, 148.17 per liter. So, wow, it's just pause, doesn't it?
If that doesn't happen, what would they do?
That's what they'll need to find out on page 28 of the paper.
You say it's an ultimatum. I mean, if you don't let me do this, I will do what?
They've given several recommendations, thinking, look, why can't we also import these products and then take away this headache? But the other thing about that is, if they import the product, isn't it going to be subject to the vagaries of the fluctuations of the naira and the dollar? So when that happens, are they going to still blame what? What will they blame next? They'll say, well, we can't sell at a loss. That's always the key. Don't forget. That's the ball.
You're not a charity. They're business.
So even if they import, so well, I have to make profit. And then NPC imports, and don't forget, we understand, or at least we're meant to believe that there is subsidy. So if it's imported, if it's subsidized, if that subsidy component is in that chain at some point, if it is not with Ipman, how much is it going to be selling for? Even if they sign all the agreements and MOUs that we will sell at a certain price, we know we've signed several MOUs, don't we? Well, you tell me.
I don't think that they can sell anyway, unless they cannot reach an agreement to sell at a certain price. What they will do is reach an agreement to sell at a certain percentage. You cannot exceed a certain percentage profit. But, I mean, what do I know? I do know that people can be dishonest and they will find ways to increase whatever their costs are so that they can, charge a certain percentage.
They've always told us about fraud in subsidy
sector,
payments.
Yeah.
So, well,
I don't know. I just know that selling petrol cannot be rocket science. Refining it cannot be rocket science. I mean, as I said, it's something we did in basic chemistry in SS1. SS1 is what I did in basic chemistry. It cannot be difficult.
Oh dear. If only we know that our reality, sometimes you wonder. But wait, guys, look at this. I need to read this as well. This is ascribed to a report. It's had just above that nameplate of the New Telegraph. 67% IT firms finalize plans to leave Nigeria. 67%.
This is when we're planning to go everything, eh?
So you can imagine what would be if this plays out. I mean, in addition to whatever might have happened previously in that sector, in terms of those who have left.
In addition to what is currently happening in many banks, many banks in that sector.
Exactly.
Where their IT departments are being completely stripped out as a result of the Japa syndrome.
Wow.
So it's a serious matter, Chamberlain, and I think it's something that we cannot paper over.
Well, why do I think this is going to fuel what you see at the bottom strip of the paper? Senate expresses concern over CBN's cash withdrawal limits. Debates policy Tuesday. threatens 100 agencies with zero budgetary allocations, over 1.9 trillion naira service-wide vote. So it just goes on. So that sector, they will have a lot of challenge. While many are trying to run away from physically going to the banks all the time, and now you have this. Well, that's the Telegraph anyways.
A plethora of stories for you on the front page of the Vanguard this morning. But they're not starting with what we've seen on most of the dailies, which is about the cashless policy of the CBN. They are starting with shots. Firing shots from the federal government again.
Okay.
Floods, governors should account for ecological fund. That's from the Minister of Environment was giving his own brief yesterday. And that's what he had to say about the floods. That yes, we suffer from floods from time to time, but the governors need to account for what they're doing with the ecological fund. So maybe he's pointing us to where we should be looking and asking questions of,
maybe
of
in
the
that
state
paper
government.
too, they might have given the names of those states that got it and how much they got, so that
That would be one area for journalists to certainly pursue.
Yep.
Says federal government plays its part, state governments must fulfill their obligations. Adds Environment Ministry generated and paid 8.7 billion naira into TSA. Nigeria to benefit from climate fund with action plan put in place. Ogoni cleanup in progress. So that's what they're following up for you on page 5 of the paper this morning. But don't forget that just last week it was all hot here when the Minister of State for Budget and national planning, said that state governors were focusing on flyovers and airports to the detriment of the people in the state, and that's why the poverty figures were just what we're seeing. And then it didn't help when the president also added that, the local government funds were being stolen by the governors. And he gave a practical example. Well, state governors also fired back through the NGF. I don't know why they waited for it to be weekend, though. But they said, federal government, you were the one who derelicted on your duty on providing security. But hey, once more, it looks like this brings it back to the burner. Governors need to account for ecological funds, and that's coming from a minister of the Federal Republic. Look at this one at the bottom here. It's still political season. Atiku Obi promised Nigerians better future, end to ASU strikes. So page 27 will give you details on that. Troops kill 8 ISWAP fighters in Maiduguri Damaturu Highway. We're still fighting the war. NJC reinstates Justice Ofili Ajumogobia as Federal High Court judge. It's on page 7 for you. It's a moment of romance between Mr. and Mrs. this morning. I don't want to put my put my mouth in their matter, lest I get stuck in the middle. Besides, Ayo is not here to pressure me over that. So I'll leave you to do Mr. and Mrs. yourself. On the back page, they have sports for you. Huge tornado hits Qatar. Oh, yeah, that is there, right on the back page. How did it, were there any effects on the matches being played? I don't think so. I don't think any was reported, but I don't know if there are any after effects. But they have details inside the paper for you. A real desert storm. I don't know that that's the real picture of it, but you might find details somewhere inside of the paper. Let's leave it there for Vanguard and Vanguard Sports.
Well, thankfully, there was no match yesterday, so I imagine that should not have affected much. But take a look at this Nigeria that's next on our lineup, and it's on the elections. 2023, UK has no preferred candidate, says Envoy. We'll work with any presidential candidate that emerges. So I think that speaks to the point you made earlier on. And I think this goes without saying, honestly. It's a sovereign nation, right? And then you see that 245,300 malnourished children in Katsina require immediate treatment, UNICEF claims. Wow. It'll be good to hear what the Katsina state government has to say about this. 245,300 malnourished children. This is a big disaster on our hands, really. And just one more for you from this Nigeria. World Bank says low-income countries' debt rises to 89 trillion. in 2021. Yeah. That's this Nigeria for you.
And from this Nigeria, we'll take Nigerian News Direct. I believe that's the next stop for us this morning. And it leads with an interesting one that also got senators talking yesterday. The Nigerian News Direct captions it this way: 1.9 trillion naira probe, 100 MDAs ignoring invitation, risk zero allocations for 2023. That's a 2023 budget that's coming from the Senate. And that's about the 1.9 trillion naira is the service-wide vote, is the contingency fund captured annually in the budget. And, if you see the breakdown, quite a number of agencies are drawing funds from this contingency vote to the tune of billions. 445 billion is going to one agency. Another is accessing to the tune of 50 billion and all of that. And you find these agencies, sounding like, they could pretty much do the same. So why the proliferation of these agencies? That leads us to yet another aspect of the conversation. The report that has recommended that some of these agencies be scrapped. So, the conversation could go on and on. But the important thing here is that these funds, some of these funds can be mopped up for other critical aspects of the budget. Look at the health sector, for instance. But let's make progress to look at some other stories. This one, politics, Tinubu Shettima candidacy, Southwest governors' wives storm Lagos, kick off women's support campaign. It's the electioneering season, and we're bound to see more of these campaigns, in the coming days. But let's leave it there for the Nigerian News Direct.
And that's where we wrap it up for the dailies. I know some stories have interested you. Yes, they're interesting to us as well. So we'll take a moment and we'll come back with the big topics of the day. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us.
The campaign train of the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, is in Taraba State in the company of his running mate, his wife, and members of his campaign council. He arrives at the palace of the Emir of Muri in Jalingo, where he explains how his administration plans to harness the potential of the state.
To harness, Nigeria is collapsing. And it's doing so fast that we have now created 133 million people living in poverty. And Taraba is not an exception. It is happening here where you have millions of people who don't know where the next meal will come from. And that is what I and Baba Ahmed wants to reverse.
The campaign ground is the Jolly Yame Stadium, and the crowd is ecstatic. His running mate, Mr. Yusuf Baba Ahmed, urges the people to focus on the goal of getting the party into Aso Rock in 2023.
Brothers and sisters, I'm saying that there is a war raging in Nigeria now. That war is not between tribes. It is not between faiths. It is between the good people of Nigeria and bad governance. And that war we must win. Nigeria must unite. The meaning of unity is to bring Peter Obi to Nigeria.
Mr. Peter Obi appreciates the crowd and urges them to take back the country.
We are not going to govern from Abuja. We are not going to remain in Abuja. We are going to come to here to fight poverty. We will empower you people. Those people in Abuja, they don't come here. We are going to come here. We are going to make it work. Look at Mandela. Look at the land here. We will cultivate it. We'll make this a tourist center. People will come here. That is what we want to do.
The Presidential Campaign Council of the party says Mr. Obi will be sharing his manifesto with the people as he campaigns from state to state in the coming days.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, it's the political season, so you expect a lot of political talk all over the place up until the elections hold. Well, this morning we do have Dr. Ayo Olorunfemi, who is the Deputy National Chairman of the Labour Party. He joins us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today. Well, we'll focus on aspects of your manifesto. But by the way, we did reach out to Ambassador Mohammed Hassan, who is a member of APC's PCC. At the moment, he's not able to make it on the program. And partly because, I'm not sure, you might have seen the response or the criticisms from, for instance, the APC concerning your party's manifesto after the much-awaited release. They did say, well, it took 15 pages to have graphics of the presidential candidates and his vice. You came up with figures that China moved 740 million people out of poverty, China's Communist Party. You forgot to include, or you didn't include, or deliberately refused to include how long it took China to do that, which was in 40 years. And the APC says that even makes their plan of moving 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years more realistic as opposed to what your party has put out, particularly concerning those areas.
Okay, first and foremost, you need to talk about a secure nation before you begin to talk of any other thing. If you look at our manifesto, we talk about a safe Nigeria, a secured nation. You know, when you have security everywhere, then prosperity will go to everywhere. So to APC is it's already 7 years old in governance. And the previous manifesto, I don't know how far they have been able to fulfill what they said they would do to Nigeria. But, you know, it is easier for anybody to begin to criticize the document that we have. Labour Party is not a new political party. We have been here for a very long time, and we have what we stand for. There are certain things that we are noted for. Our program is people, people, and people. You know, so we are not bothered about the criticism coming from the failed political party that couldn't take us to anywhere for 7 years.
You don't think the message is worth consideration?
Well, we are looking at constructive criticisms. We are talking about people who have been in government for 7 years and couldn't achieve anything. Talking about security, we are worse than they met us in 2015. Talk about the economy, you and I know what the situation is. We're talking about cashless economy, then you push out POS, point of sales service machine, and now made the economy to be cash. You know, you go to POS, you collect cash. Now there's a somersault in the policy. You are making it difficult again for people to bank.
Well, we'll come to that in a bit. But from that message, it comes across as though the party is saying that, look, can the Labour Party be a lot more specific in terms of what is their realistic target or objective, or how many do they intend to lift out of poverty and how long? For what's the duration of time?
You see, talking about time now, I want us to focus on the project itself first and foremost before you begin to talk about time. It is a country where we claim to be very religious, but we also pretend not to appreciate the religion or the religions that we portray. Everything depends on God. But, you know, when you are determined and you recognize your culture, your environment, you know, and you have a program that is suited for the people that you want to govern, I'm telling you, if we tell you 10 years, it could be 4 years. It could be 3 years. The turnaround can take place within 3 years, so depending on the political will.
Is that how we're supposed to relate with your party manifesto?
No, our party manifesto is very clear. I've said it from the onset. Our party manifesto is very clear, and we know where we are going for. We know what we are going for.
So what do you mean everything depends on God then?
Well, oh, okay. Even America say, what?
Yeah, but did the party get their manifesto from God?
Yes, of course. The inspiration comes from God. Even your being here depends on God. So everything, and as a people,
but God is not the author of confusion.
Wait, it's not an author of confusion. That is exactly what I'm saying. God is not an author of confusion. Okay? And when you depend on him, okay, like you will confess in your church, like she will confess in her church or in her mosque. Okay? So don't come here and pretend as if this God does not exist. Well, so what I'm saying is this.
No, I don't think the argument is about the existence of God.
So if we...
I think that the conversation is about a plan.
Yes.
Usually, I mean, I think nowadays the business executive talk about smart plans.
Yeah. Exactly.
It has to be specific. You know,
you have to be you have to be realistic and all of that. All of those things.
And they have a time frame. It must have a time frame.
Very fantastic.
So that's what my colleague is asking you. What's the time frame in which you plan to implement this? You cannot tell us it depends on God.
You see, we will tell you we can give you time frame, okay, based on what we are going to meet on ground. You are not yet in government. You are not yet familiar with the mess that this government has created, and maybe the previous government too. Then we'll sit down and begin to tell you that by next year we don't lie. We don't tell lies.
But what you have said is that
when you talk about it can be shorter than what we are talking about.
But you must have at least a projection that no matter how bad the mess we meet is, within this period, and based on the projections that we're seeing in terms of income, and based on what we can see from certain areas and which are transparently put in the public space, we should be able to do so and so and so within this time frame.
Yeah, that is where I stopped before you interjected.
Yeah,
and I said it could be 3 years, it could be 4 years. But the first thing we are going to be doing is to ensure that Nigeria is secure. Without security, there's no prosperity anywhere. Okay? And I can tell you, the only political party that can bring about security, safe environment in Nigeria is that political party that never got involved in the mess that we have in the country. The two other political parties, you call them major political parties, they were involved in bringing crisis to Nigeria, bringing insecurity to Nigeria. But Labour Party was never party to everything that led to the insecurity that we have today in Nigeria. So if we are going to face it, we face it headlong.
You know,
this government cannot face it because they were involved. They are complicit in the mess that we find ourselves today.
For a number of people, I mean, Labour Party did not exist until the emergence of the presidential aspirant. I was going to say Governor Peter Obi, but he's the presidential aspirant right now on the platform of the Labour Party. He's the one who has injected life into the Labour Party. Would you agree with that?
No.
You wouldn't?
Yeah, I will explain.
And the momentum that your party enjoys
like I told you,
is as a result of his emergence as a presidential candidate.
Like I told you before, everything depends on time that God has set for certain things to happen. What is happening in Nigeria today has been planned many years ago by God. And this is the manifestation time for this thing to happen. I must tell you that Labour Party did not just come just from the blue. It has been hiding over the years. You recall that we were in court on several occasions. Okay? The TUC and NSC decided that they must be involved in active politics. And for that reason, TUC, reorganized its political commission, for which I am still the chairman, under Kodri Olaleye, handed over to Osifo. We did the reconciliation that you saw in the Labour Party. And today, of course, if a Labour Party remained the way it used to be, Peter Obi will not come there and say he wants to come and contest. Where a situation whereby somebody will say, he's not our candidate. The other one will say, it's our candidate. But today, we have a unified Labour Party. Both the TUC, NSC, and the executive of Labour Party are united together. That was why Peter Obi could come and use the platform. And don't forget that we have our structure in all the local government and units of the federation. So those who are saying we don't have structure, we laugh at them. But now they see what Labour Party, Labour movement can do with their own political party.
So what you're saying is that a number of factors have culminated in what we're seeing as not just the Labour Party, but also affecting the fortunes, or I say the popular fortunes of the Labour Party presidential candidate.
Fantastic. Yeah, you are correct.
That's what
the first and foremost, we need to also commend us for looking for a candidate like Peter Obi. We couldn't have just gotten any candidate from the wood and say, okay, this is the candidate we want to.
Did you look for him or he looked for you?
We looked for him. We searched. He's not the only one. We searched for candidates. We searched for him, and we told him we needed. You
didn't have any candidates in house?
We had candidates. We had candidates. Pat Utomi was a candidate. We had several other candidates. We considered so many other options.
Was Professor Pat Utomi a member of your party?
Yeah, he came to join us at a point, even before Peter Obi came.
When was that?
That was around January this year. Okay. He came to join us. You know, he was having there was this collaboration between us and the NC Front, Nigerian Labour Congress, TUC, and all of that. And at a point, we took a decision that, look, we can't form a new political party when we have our own political party.
Okay, let me go back to your manifesto now. Part of what the presidential candidate and the presidential candidate of your party has promised to do is to look at hourly wages for workers. And I do know that, amongst Labour workers, amongst the not Labour Party now, but Labour unions, that has been something that has been a bone of contention. They think that workers will get cheated if hourly wages were introduced. How is your party reconciling some of the things that Labour had kicked against in the past or might have objections to with some of the things that you have now promised in your manifesto?
You see, we have different types of employment, okay? And I think the aspect that our presidential candidate is talking about has to do with those employment that you're a situation where you work for 10 hours and you get peanut. Those are the area he's talking about. For employment, we want you to agree with us that employment is not just social welfare. It's about productivity, and that is one of the things we stand for. As apart from being labor movement that emphasize more on productivity, okay, and the reward system. So we don't just joke with productivity. It must go hand in hand with
I'm sorry if I missed something here, but what category then is this policy of hourly wages going to apply, since you say there are categories of employment?
Fine. You agree with me that someone who is digging the ground works more than those of us who are sitting down here in the comfort of an air condition, talking or writing. They do more work. They do a lot of hard work.
You mean manual labor?
The manual laborers. They do a lot of work. And you can't compare somebody who is carrying heavy loads, from one point to another, or who have to excavate the ground, spending 6 hours to excavate the ground. You must reward that person handsomely in order for him to be able to live according to.
So is that supposed to be what? Reward him much more than who? Scientists or researchers who send people to the moon? Is that the context?
No, that is not the context. Don't get me wrong. Okay. If you are a scientist and you are working in a particular sector of the economy, you are also rewarded based on what you are able to produce. Okay? If you are a researcher, you are rewarded based on the research you are doing.
So which category would this apply?
So, but the group that we are talking about, those excavators, those loaders, those guys who are working at our various terminals, carrying, using crane and all of that, they should be rewarded appropriately. And the only way you can reward them is to attach their wages to the hours they work.
Yeah, so the question is this. How are you reconciling? Because before now, even talking with organized labor, they had kicked against that even for minimum wage workers to say, why don't we look at this in such a way that people can earn, can work in different places as is done elsewhere, where you put in a certain number of hours. If, for instance, cleaners, they can clean a particular place in one company and go somewhere else and go and clean another place. Why can't we structure it that way? And they said, oh no, workers are going to be cheated, people are not going to have job security, etc. Have you had these conversations with organized labor to see how some of these, of these plans of yours sit with them, whether they are happy, to have some of these plans, or whether or not they're going to kick against it?
Now we are having our own government, and we know how to apply that very, very well and to the advantage of Nigerian workers. The 30,000 naira minimum wage divided into 30 places. How much is that? 1,000 per day. Is that money? It's nothing. So we are now saying, if you are paying me 1,000 naira per hour, and I have to give you 6 hours, okay, that's 6,000 per day. Okay, and I work in a particular organization, I can decide to work for 6 hours and go back to my house. Who says I don't?
Sir, I think you're misunderstanding me. Yeah. I don't have any objections to that. Yeah. What I'm saying is, have you had the conversation with organized labor? That's the question I'm asking. If
we are Labour Party and we are saying this, it means the organized labor is already in what we are talking about. We are involved.
So they don't have a problem with it?
As I speak here, I'm a Secretary General of a union. Mm-hmm. So, and whatever we are doing here is with the consent and approval of Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress.
So it's as if you're keeping the implementation now, to your chest.
Of course, we don't have to expose it because before they mess it up. When we get there, you will see how this thing will work. And I can assure you, Nigerian workers will be happier for what we're trying to do.
Well, like all these individuals, I've got questions, so you go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Lots of issues raised, actually, and I think I'll start from the labor matter, the hourly wage issue, because I think it's a major one for Nigerians. Yes, you're also a labor person, but a lot of people will question whether or not all of the labor members in Nigeria are really a part of this, because we've seen even former leaders of labor being members of other parties and even declaring support. So, I mean, that's on the one hand, but particularly about this hourly wage. If you divide that 30,000 naira minimum wage, as you said, by not even 30, let's say 25, because, I mean, workers don't work, I mean, for every day of the month, right? So, I mean, there are weekends when they don't have to go to work. So let's imagine you divide 30,000 naira by 25. What you get is, what, 1,200? I hope my math get correct. Yeah, 1,200. Then divided by 8 hours on a daily basis, that's 150 naira per hour, going by the current minimum wage, right? So for your party, since this is going to be a major campaigning point, and hopefully if you get into government, this will be something you want to follow through. So what hourly rate would you be proposing for Nigerian workers? If it currently stands at 150, what would your proposal be, seeing that you're also a labor person yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. It depends on the nature of job that will be given out. For instance, when you take costly look at the manual labor out there, a laborer out there, don't take less than 2,500 naira, 3,000 naira per day, which is still not okay as far as reward system is concerned. If we base that on hourly, divide 3,000 by 6 hours, you'll be talking about 500 naira per hour. So when you benchmark that against what we have now, certainly you'll be talking of something within the range of 500 to 1,000 naira per hour, depending on the nature of work. So, and at the end of the day, someone can effectively say that yes, you can make up to 4,000 naira in a day, and when you divide when you multiply 4,000 naira in a day by 20 or by 25, you're talking about 100 or 80,000, 100,000 naira for somebody who has worked very, very hard, as a laborer.
So maybe correcting that, ideally what you're saying is what we should have as a minimum wage in Nigeria. Instead of the 30,000, is that between 80,000 to 100,000? I mean,
80 to 100,000, very correct, very correct. That is exactly where we are going.
So is your party able to promise Nigerians a minimum wage of 80,000 naira? Not just promise, fulfill that promise.
We shall, because we have what it takes in this country to be prosperous.
Right.
And
so,
we can even do better than that as we move on.
Okay, so let's talk about the workability of it, because I mean, if there's anything we have seen during politicking, politicians can promise anything. They promise you literally heaven and earth. How will that be implemented? 80,000 naira minimum wage. That is not ×2, almost ×3 of the current minimum wage, which some are still even grappling to, pay right now. So where will the funds come from? Where would you get the revenue to pay workers 80,000 naira at least as a minimum wage?
Yeah, I told you earlier that employment is not just about social welfare, it's about productivity. Okay? And so we are going to be making people to be productive, and out of what they are producing, something will come out. I can assure you. We have a mass, arable lands in the southeast, Taraba. That is the kind of land we have in the southeast. Is what Israel has been spending a lot of money to get. And you agree with me that in Israel they don't import food, so they export. And we are talking about export-oriented industrialization. So how we wait till that time? By the time you see prosperity in display, you will agree with us that that is the minimum we can take. As a matter of fact, the amount of oil in the name of oil theft that has been leaving this country. We know where these things are coming from. Well, they say there's no money. We know where these things are coming from. This money has been stashed in the cupboard and the rooms and toilets of some few individuals.
Well,
so that has accounted for the kind of insecurity that we are facing in the country today, because even our youth are protesting.
Right.
When you see people going into crime, people becoming violent, it is an evidence of antagonism to the criminal activities of people in governance.
I mean, don't forget that even if Nigeria were to do 3 million barrels per day, first there will be a cap. There's a natural cap of OPEC, but just how much revenue can we get from that? How much will be available to spend? Don't forget, we're servicing our debts. It's taking up a huge chunk of our revenue. So this government is even trying to move away sort of from oil, get other sources of revenue. So the question is, if we were even doing ×2 of what we're doing right now, how much will be available to sell? How much of that revenue will be available to use? That's a big concern. So I'm not sure oil will be very viable in some sense, as you have said. But I'd like you to speak to this. My colleague would want to come in soon. But regarding the philosophy of the Labour Party, I mean, some would say you are like an establishment person. You're a Labour Party person because, I mean, you are a Labour person. Of course, you've been in the party before the emergence or the entry of Mr. Peter Obi, his vice, from the PDP, naturally. And just yesterday, we saw your candidates in the Osun governorship election. He actually is now a member of the PDP, really moving from the Labour Party to the PDP. And some will wonder, so what then is the philosophy of your party if someone who really was your party member some months ago, was your candidate, campaigned under your party banner, got support from your party, yes, didn't do well in the election, but then can easily then move to another party? So really, what then is the philosophy of the Labour Party? Is this just another party where people come and go?
Don't forget that the Osun governorship election took place before the full reconciliation of the various factions within the Labour Party. And so people before now, come in, they use the political party when they were dumped in one way or the other from their political party. But right now, the situation is not as it used to be. Before you can be allowed into the party to contest in any election, we must have certified that you belong to our ideological group, and of course, you know what we stand for. Not the socialist, not the capitalist, but of course, we are much more interested in productivity, reward system, and good environment for prosperity to occur. So when you are mentioning someone like Lasun, who has gone back to PDP, we cannot be surprised because we also took his candidacy with a pinch of salt. And you saw the outcome of the election, where Labour did not put all the weight on that particular process. Then coming back to the point you raised earlier, I think you made some comment about I can't really fix that now. Yeah, if you can remind me about what you said concerning
Yeah, Mr. Olorunfemi, I wonder if you also take his followership that he's moving with to the PDP, back to the PDP with a pinch of salt. But let's make progress on the conversation. I'm looking at your manifesto, just released manifesto here, and one of the critical points is to secure Nigeria and end banditry insurgency. And the strategy to achieving that, they're listed, strategies now listed this way: undertake institutional reforms, reforming the security sector, swift, firm and fair prosecution of criminals, enhance coordination, improve the functioning and effectiveness of security agencies, strengthen the Ministry of Interior, Police Affairs, and it goes on and on. But one thing is missing there, which is community policing, and has been at the heart of the conversation as far as securing Nigeria is concerned. And of course, also material to the debate on restructuring, which is something that has also been, conspicuously absent in the promises made by your presidential candidate, as he traverses the length and breadth of the country. I'd like to find out why this is not contained in the ideological disposition of the Labour Party.
Yeah, you just mentioned you used the word restructuring, and restructuring is all encompassing. When it comes to detail, then you're talking about community policing. Of course, it's part of what, apart from community policing, we believe that the police system that was handed over to us, the constabulary system that was handed over to us, started from native authority to local government and on like that. For now, we are looking at the situation that we find ourselves, and we believe so seriously that having state police, will help a lot, and we are also committed to that. Of course, as I speak to you, the paramount ruler in my own community has been kidnapped right in his house. I'm from the southwest, and we are running helter-skelter over that. Of course, if we have state police that has been so equipped to handle this kind of a thing, okay, before it happened, intelligence gathering will have revealed that certain group of people, certain guys are doing APC. Of course, I don't have to stay here and begin to give you details as to how we are going to tackle insecurity, because doing so will jeopardize our strategies. But I can assure you, I've been kidnapped before. I've lived with these people in the forest, and I know their mindset. I know what they are doing. I know the reason why they are doing what they are doing, and I also know how they came into the country. So, and I'm happy to be part of the Labour Party, and that will drive the process of fighting insecurity in Nigeria.
Okay, just one more thing before we go. You forgot to tell us you were going to suggest how much minimum wage will then be per hour based on your projections.
Yeah, we are looking at between 500 to 1,000, depending on the nature, the nature of work that will be done per hour. So if you do an average, if you do a kind of simulation of that, it will give you an average of 80, okay, between 80 and 100,000 per month. And so if we are talking about minimum wage of 80,000, of course, that is where we ought to have been.
Okay. I think we'll make a lot more time, so much later, so that we can now dissect properly, because if you're doing this, you have to calculate how much that will be, then if it's going to be 8 hours a day, multiplied by that by a month, and if that's sustainable, where the funds will come. But there's certainly a lot to focus on in the days ahead, but we do have to thank you, Dr. Ayo Olorunfemi, Deputy National Chairman for Labour Party. All the best.
Thank you very much.
We're back in after this break. Don't go away.
This authority, by voting PDP in the next general elections, because a federal government controlled by PDP and a state government controlled by PDP in Osun State is to the greater good of Osun people. And our only objective is to make sure that the current challenges of insecurity, disunity, economic deprivation, lack of jobs for our young men and women, and then of course the future of this country through restructuring can be achieved. And this, I promise you, I am going to start doing them from day one. It means empowering Osun State with more resources and authority to do what needs to be done. What needs to be done is to provide the infrastructure needed for development, invest in education and healthcare in Osun State, and bring about industrialization for the economic benefit of the people of Osun State. So my brothers and sisters of Osun, I have come to say a very big thank you. And I urge you, I appeal to you, I plead with you to come out in greater numbers than you did in the last state election and vote PDP in the next general election. That is the only way you can secure your future and the future of your children. We promise you, we will not fail you. We are not like APC because we have done it before. We have got the experience. We have got the people who have the capacity to bring about changes. We are not new as far as governance is concerned in Nigeria. So, my fellow brothers and sisters and my in-laws, no be so? No be so? Are you going to vote for your in-law or not? Are you? Are you? Oh yeah, let me see your hands.
So let's analyze the PDP's manifesto. We just had a show in Osun State yesterday. They had in Lagos some days back. And as you've seen, we're joined on the program this morning by Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce, who is the member, PDP National Presidential Campaign Council, is also Lagos State Coordinator, Atiku Okowa Presidential Campaign Support Groups. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Were you in Osun yesterday?
Not in Osun State. We just had our own on Monday, so we're still trying to recover from the Monday event.
From the Monday event. But being a Southwest event, I imagine that you also should be part of the Osun event.
Well, I should have gone, but I couldn't make it.
Okay. Not that there was any issue.
Oh, no.
Okay. Because we always need to check these days. But seeing what played out in Osun State, I mean, without your hitherto only governor in the Southwest before we now have the Osun State governor. And then in Lagos again, what played out? You didn't have your chieftain, the chieftain of your party in Lagos, Chief Bode George, who's, a major figure in that party. Would you say that your party is really moving at the speed, the momentum it ought to, seeing the showing in Lagos and in Osun State without those key figures? Are you satisfied with the showing?
Very satisfied, because what you're having in our party is a transition and a change, adaptation to the current state of affairs. A lot of changes going on in the way we do politics these days, in both parties, in all the parties. So in Lagos, yes, Chief Bode George was not there, but he has not been around in the party as such for quite a while. Since we had our Congress last February, So he has not been really, and he has shown that he has said clearly it's not with the program. Therefore, there was no need for him to be there. And as you saw, there was no problem. The place was jam-packed, and we had a program.
Which one? The one in Lagos?
The one in Lagos and the one in Osun. The Southwest leader at some point in time, he was the only governor we had in the party. He's not the only governor now. So we move on.
What do you define as jam-packed? I know it's always tricky these days. I mean, using crowd to measure support a party has. Sometimes it might not be the real indication of support.
Sure.
For the Lagos, you said it was jam-packed. How much crowd did you have, really?
Well, about 20,000 people. It could have been more, but we had enough to, we had a very short period, by the way, to plan that rally.
Authentically PDP supporters, all 20,000?
No, the ones that were there.
I'm asking if they're authentically PDP supporters, the entire 20,000 crowd.
How would you know?
I'm asking you. It's your party.
Look, most of the people who show up.
Or are they rented crowds?
I can tell you this. Believe me, PDP is one party that does not even have the capacity to rent crowd. We don't do it. We don't need to. People who are in PDP, Lagos especially, are dedicated people who have decided that in spite of the problems we had in Lagos, where we've not won any major election in 20 years, they're still in the party. These are dedicated people. People came to that rally. Some of them came on their own. Some leaders put money together, rented bus for their people, brought them there. People are committed to the party, especially because we have a presidential candidate who is unique and head and shoulders above the rest of the candidates running in this election. And therefore, they came with enthusiasm, they came with passion, and that's why they were there. So our party is moving on. We are ready to go and take over and help Nigeria improve the condition of life that we suffered in the last 8 years for the people.
Without intending to digress, before we leave Osun, let's just quickly look at, happenings in that state. And just as, the new governor took office, there were reports that some of the policies that he began to implement included the sacking of 12,000 workers. There's been a debate over the exact number, really, and we're waiting for the state government to clarify. But when he was going to resume office, it was touted as the light that was coming to Osun State. I wonder if this speaks to, what is to come for the PDP administration should it win in 2023.
Well, in every state, there are peculiarities. I think what you have in Osun State is the suspicion that Governor Adeleke has that there are too many ghost workers in the administration. And the previous governor actually made some changes, he made some appointments, he made all sorts of things to satisfy himself at the expense of the interests of the people.
12,000 is quite a number.
I don't know how many. You said it yourself, we don't know the number. Whatever it is, if the former governor appointed 15,000 ghost workers and this new governor says 12,000 must go, then everything is in order. So let us see the man in performance, and then we judge how the new governor will perform. But the fact that he sacked so many workers is because of what happened just before the administration changed hands. The former governor decided to make all sorts of appointments, new laws, and so on. So that's what he's responding to.
And I think it's quite interesting, that point, really. So if your party were to win at the national level, would you be expecting, radical, drastic changes? Is that what Nigerians should expect immediately?
What you see in one state has nothing to do with the presidential project. What you want to find out if Atiku becomes the next president of Nigeria is what he will do.
Right.
And he has said that clearly in everywhere he has gone. He has this 5-point agenda, which will restructure Nigeria, which will unify Nigeria, which will develop the economy, which will secure Nigeria, and which will focus on education as a fundamental basis for human capacity development and general development of a country.
Which is the point I'm trying to make. What shape, what form, and what time frame will it take? Will it be drastic, radical? Will it be fast and quick? Because, I mean, Nigerians have gone through a lot generally. So I want you to help them understand the thinking of your candidate. Is he, as I say, hitting the ground running if he were to win? Will he be as drastic, as quick?
Atiku is experienced. Atiku is deliberate in the way he does things. He understands that fundamentally changes have to be made. This is not superficial changes that appear to be good and quick and fast. No. First and foremost, I think what is most important for him is to be able to convince the National Assembly that the 1999 Constitution must be reviewed and that we must have a people-friendly constitution, a democratic constitution, a constitution that decentralizes government and allows the states to develop so that they can take care of their business and develop use their natural resources to develop their various jurisdictions. So once he gets that, now you are getting the fundamentals in place.
But on that point you made about the 1999 Constitution part of it, how will it be different from what we have seen this administration still trying to achieve, by the way? We just heard that some state assemblies have not even assented to some of the recommendations in the constitutional review. So how will this be different? First, this will be dependent on whether or not you have a majority in the National Assembly. This current government has a majority in the National Assembly, but at that lower level, they're still having major challenges. So how will this be different?
Where there's a will, there's a way. Atiku has started talking and working on the way he would restructure Nigeria for about 8 years now. Looking at it, studying it, talking to people, and I got to tell you something. The National Assembly, whether they are APC or PDP, most members of the National Assembly want a change. They also understand that things are not working in Nigeria, and Nigerians must hold their representatives accountable and say to them, we want these changes done. Therefore, when you go to Abuja, make sure that you vote in this line. We are going into a situation in Nigeria different from we've ever seen. You're not going to find people voting only on party lines. No, it's going to be policy and issues.
You're saying where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
Are you riding on wishful thinking, or you're talking, based on optimism that under the administration of Atiku Abubakar, the National Assembly, he will secure, majority vote in support of critical issues in the Constitution review, i.e. reduction of powers from the center, state policing, local government autonomy, which are critical to development. Are you optimistic that, he will secure the majority support needed from the National Assembly to actualize some of these issues?
The reason I use the terminology, if there's a will, there's a way, is because under Buhari, the will was not there. He said it from the beginning. He didn't want to hear anything about 2014 confab. He didn't even want to be briefed on it. It's on record. He said a 2-page interview in Punch of that period. Now, Atiku, on the other hand, is fully committed to this. And I know Nigerians want this change. You will not have so much IPOB, you will not have a Yoruba nation, you will not have a Ijaw nation, everybody clamoring for change. They want to leave this union if you do not decentralize, if you do not get them involved. Because what is going on now with the center with so much power is that this disenfranchise so many units, and Atiku has been working on this. Atiku, when he was vice president, argued for local government direct reimbursement to local government.
Perhaps I should just be direct with the question.
Yes.
Is he going to get the support of the northern groups in the National Assembly?
Well, again, Nigeria is at the brink of collapse. It would take a man like him, who comes from within, to tell people in the north that, look, if this thing is not going to be in your interest, I wouldn't do it because it will not be my interest. I'm doing it because it is in all our interest. And by the way, the reason I myself began to believe Atiku, that he would do it, because a lot of people told me, they say, he's a Fulani man. Northerners are enjoying government now Why should they change? And that is relevant. However, Atiku has seen that actually Northerners are not enjoying anything. They are in power, but they are suffering more than anybody else. So it takes a man who is from them to explain it to them that we're actually suffering. And it will be in our own interest. And by the way, talk about natural resources, which has been deprived because everything has been in the exclusive list for so long in this 1999 terrible constitution.
Right.
Now, it will not be in the exclusive list again. The Northerners are now beginning to see that they have more mineral resources than we have in the South. Atiku has seen that, and he has said he will let his people know, and their people are beginning to see it now. Belatedly under Buhari, they're beginning to see that they have their own resources.
You know, some
phosphate,
of these
bauxite, gold, uranium, all in the north.
Right.
So once he's able to convince them, since he is convinced himself, and he understands the benefit, I think he'll be able to convince his people.
And I think a lot of Nigerians will want to know how this will be different, because some of those promises, they heard them in the past. I mean, he was.
You never heard these promises in the past.
APC at some
you
point.
never heard.
To that extent,
this is the problem with journalists. Please, please.
The question
do not mislead the Nigerian people. Do not miss Nigerian people by saying that we heard it in the past.
I have not.
You never heard it in the past.
You've not let me land on my point.
What you heard in the past was a Buhari who said he wasn't interested.
My question. So the question I am making, or the question I'm asking, the point is this: a lot of people have heard. They can really say that they have heard this in the past. And that is a truth, whether you like it or not. The question about restructuring Nigeria, a question about ensuring that they appropriate power devolution, those are things they have heard. But the question is that how will this be different in terms of the operationalization? And let me bring you to this point.
From whom did they hear it in the past?
They've heard it from literally all of the candidates. We were just speaking to other candidates earlier.
It boils on the president. In our constitution, the way Nigeria is run, it depends on what the president wants to do. That is why we can gauge. Once you have a president who says, I'm not interested in restructuring, there is not likely to be restructuring. If you have a president that is committed to restructuring, there is a likelihood, nobody knows tomorrow, we can only gauge by what we have seen, and we can say that an Atiku presidency will usher in a new Nigeria, a restructured Nigeria.
And I think that's the point you have made yet again. Nobody knows tomorrow. They can judge from the promises, yes, but it's not enough to really see it happen. And that's the point I was trying to make.
I think the point Kadi was trying to make is really that there have been constitutional conferences, even under the administration, which your presidential candidate served, that weren't delivered on. So based on that point, sufficiently Nigerians have heard the promise of devolution of powers in the past beyond this current dispensation that haven't been delivered. So what are the assurances that these promises this time will be delivered?
This is the difference. The difference is this, like saying when Atiku was vice president, he tried to do this, he tried to do that. There's a difference between the vice president and the president. The powers you have then are different from what you have as vice president. That's why we're saying, watch what the man has done, what he did when he was vice president.
But he didn't have those powers, as you said.
Yeah, well, even the powers he had or the suggestions he made is what you look at. And then you use that now to judge that if he actually has the powers, what will happen. That's why I said, in my own opinion, an Atiku presidency will usher in a new Nigeria, a restructured Nigeria, which will improve the economy, improve our security situation, and help to unify this country, much more so than before. Everything depends on, look at the presidential candidate. When you say we've heard it in the past, you not heard it in the past from the president. What you heard from the president was not what Atiku is saying now. That is the difference.
Well, we have to anchor at this point, really. I understand that this is an ongoing conversation, and we have to ask these questions and ensure that Nigerians see the point and get
that's why we get the answers.
Assurances and ensure that at least we do right by the people of Nigeria. But we'd like to thank you so much. It's always an interesting one with you. Dr. Adetokunbo Peres is a member of PDP National Presidential Campaign Council. He's also of Lagos coordinator, Atiku Kowa Presidential Campaign Support Groups. Where's the next stop for the PDP, by the way?
I'm not sure. I've not looked at that that schedule.
The schedule.
You see, when you have your own rally,
right,
it takes so much at
we have to run now. We have to run. We'll do this
yes.
another time. Thank you so much, Dr. Pierce. Well, we're back in just a moment. Well, the conversation continues. It gets even interesting, so please stay with us.
All right, Adewale Adebayo joins us next, the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
How is your campaign going on at the moment?
Well, we are doing we're in it. We're all over the place. We're going all over the place with different places.
What kind of feedback are you getting? Because, I mean,
people are understanding the message. People are expecting us to do more. But they are getting the message.
Do more in terms of what?
Do more in terms of outreach. People always say, why have you not come to us before? Why is this message not getting to us earlier than now? So people are understanding it. People know that we are speaking, that the action is on the left side of the divide, that we need to do more social investment. We need to make sure that we have infrastructure. We need to eradicate poverty, which is a goal we must set for ourselves. And we need to make investments. And the behavior of those who come to power must reflect those priorities. And we are pointing to them that those things can be done and the resources are available in the country, and that the idea that you can have a country that is insecure and has, that the government itself will admit that 133 million of people are in extreme poverty, worse than when Abiola 30 years ago said we should do farewell to poverty under the SDP. So they are expecting us to come and explain to them, and they are beginning to believe that these things are possible.
What kind of conversation goes on in your strategy room? Because you've gone out there, you've seen your other candidates who are there, how some of them have been in government for like forever, depending on which party, and they just keep interchanging. They don't want to shield or yield any ground whatsoever. They've got the deep pocket, some may even deploy state resources. So in terms of your realistic chances, how optimistic are you? Because many will look and say, look, how are you going to upstage these other candidates, as it were?
It's a matter of the mind. Whatever arsenal that they've put together, the whole thing is targeted at confusing people. And our job is to convince people. So once you get to the people before them, or get to the people immediately after them, as long as the conversation that is coming to the people is not from only one side. So because if you just lie supine and say, well, I don't have all the arsenal, I cannot put 30 adverts in 1 hour in different media spaces. But you can reach people. You can get people to talk to people. We reach people in their organic places. Anywhere people are gathered, we go there and talk to them. So you try to be asymmetric in the approach, because what you want to do, in addition to that, is that we're trying to run away from the same default position where you go and start looking for people with deep pockets to come and start helping you to push your campain. Because if you do that,
you need funds to prosecute elections.
You need funds, but you need legitimate funds and you need moderate funding. We must change our politics if we want to change our governance. And if you don't change our governance, we cannot change the state of the country. So you must start from there. You don't want to be captured, because people know that if you're running a national election, shortly before midway, you are going to start looking for resources. So they position themselves. And those resources don't come without conditions, without conditioning your mind, without making you drop issues. People tell you, oh, don't talk about abolition of poverty. Say you want to ameliorate poverty.
Which is what you've spoken about several times.
Yeah.
You say it will take you, at least 18 months to create 30 million jobs?
I can tell you that. You see, if your aim is to create jobs that are easily creatable jobs. Remember now that we are campaigning. It's easy for a politician to create jobs for printers, for campaign organizers. They didn't take forever to do that. So when people...
Is that the kind of jobs you were
I was speaking with a retired general who was one of those who ran the Nigerian army. And I was able to tell him, how is it possible? But between 66 and 67, you were able to double and triple the size of the army. And now we have a long-range war for 10 years, a long-running war, and they haven't decided to do that because they decided to invest the money in defense contractors who will say, I supply this esoteric thing or the other. They didn't want to use that to expand the workforce in the army, absorb more poor people into the force, train them to be useful to their country, put them in supply and transport, put them in different places, and pay wages. No, they rather give 50 billion naira contract to one person to supply something we don't ever see whether they supply it and things like that. So it's a matter of priority. The same thing with the construction, with other things that you do. You want to make sure that you do in such a way that you break the work and give people work. It's not difficult.
Don't they have a point these days? Because at that time, yeah, you could need a lot more manpower. But these days, it's about technology and how you deploy. So what a battalion can do, technology could even triple that.
The tragedy of that is that we have neither the manpower nor the technology. So the issue is that we only have the money flying away. So what you do, even in the U.S. Army, this year, they had a shortage of recruits. They were even trying to recruit more than the people who showed up. So you can be more sophisticated when it comes to killing machines than the US, but they are still looking for manpower. And the reason why you do these things is that you want to keep your people engaged. The surest passport out of poverty is employment. Next to that is people discovering themselves, creating something out of their talent. What the government should stimulate. What the government is stimulating now is the taste of people who have taste for luxurious items. They are stimulating people who want to earn a lot of money because of their relationship with people who are in position.
So
this is what we need to
How did you decide on, how did you come to that conclusion that it will take you 18 months to create 30 million jobs, and in what sectors?
Okay, first, you will, in the security sector, go and talk to service chiefs. They will tell you that they have a manpower problem. If you look at the officer-troops ratio, Nigeria is skewed in favor of having more officers than troops. So you can tell somebody, Brigadier General, how many people under him? Major General, how many people under him? So you want to recruit more into the forces. It will take a lot. We are under police.
So how long is it going to take to recruit?
How long does it take to recruit? My uncles joined the army. They were marching up and down. In 3 months, they were wearing uniform. And they're all jumping all over the place. It doesn't take forever.
So you factor in recruitment, the training, the deployment,
all of that. That's for that sector.
3 months.
3 months they'll be in the depot. Then another 3 months they take them for staff training, other things, regimental training, and they are already absorbed. It doesn't take much.
So that's a section of the 30 million jobs you're talking about?
Yes, because you put in security area. There is even some other security area sectors, like the vigilantes that have been so useful in the Northeast. Some of them are very useful in the Northwest now. If you integrate them, the Southwest now, they are having their Amatekun. How long did it take them to do their Amatekun? In 3 months, they all had them all over the place, wearing the red thing and going all over the place. So what you want to do is to make it more organized and federally funded. Next to that is that because you have security now, you can now start investing in agriculture. Almost everybody. I've done agricultural investment. You can turn, when I set up my plantation, oil palm plantation, we were going to the Catholic church, going around picking housewives. Within a short time, they knew how to handle basic implement to manage agriculture. So agriculture, if you go to Southern Kaduna, Plateau, all those areas, it doesn't take people more than 6 weeks to learn how to plant ginger. They already have the basic knowledge. It's just for you to invest in it. If you go to Niger State, Kebbi, and you want to invest in rice, they know rice farming. You only need to teach them modern methods of managing the paddy and all of that. So if you do these programs like that, now patching roads, though the community gave me an award for just talking to them last year. Like, okay, why don't you just eradicate all the potholes in this town and darkness at night? How do we do it? Okay, they put me in charge. Now we're patching roads. Young people who used to just lazy around now are patching roads all over. So maybe by Christmas or next year when you go to Ondo, you drive all over the place, there's no pothole. So there will be no darkness anywhere. So things can easily be done. So they are not talking of jobs. Later, when you start to industrialize and do other things, the people will migrate.
Are you going to industrialize within 18 months?
No, you can't. What I'm saying is that you absorb people into easy-to-do job, agro-ally, infrastructure. Look at Lagos, look at Abuja, Kaduna.
So they're largely temporary jobs? Because
these are jobs that can last them like 7, 8, 10 years. But the important is that they are working and they are in the task bracket. And then the next layer of what you want to do is now to stabilize industries. I'll give you an example without taking too much of your time. In Southern Kaduna today, if you aggregate roughly all the ginger that they produce, it's around $60 to $80 million. But if you bring a press, ginger press in, and they start crushing the ginger and taking the ginger oil, the same community that produce ginger and wash it and you cut it away will start pressing the ginger, and they will be able to make up to $1.2 billion from the same ginger. So you can do it. It's not that
how
difficult
long is
to
that
do.
going to take? And how many jobs are you targeting for that sector?
If you break the sector into 10 sectors, you will easily create 3 million jobs from each sector. For example, Jakande, I don't know, I was growing up in Lagos, you see that Jakande, I was just seeing Jakande Estate popping all over the place. If you bring 100,000 houses in every state in Nigeria, 100,000 houses only, I'm a builder. If you build 100,000 houses, to build a typical house, typical building, you will need about 10, 20 workers. 100,000 houses in each state simultaneously being built. You know, Shagari, and we'll have Dosumu doing that program.
But for the ginger,
yes,
they're going to plant, isn't it?
Ginger it doesn't take long for ginger to grow. And there are so many other crops.
Is it that they have these equipment already, or we're going to import them?
This is what happens now. Maybe I shouldn't be promoting the business here, so you don't go and do it. You see, what you do is that there are planters, there are lands. Typically, you buy the seedlings, then you go and plant, just like you're planting yam. It's a root kind of plant. I'm just using ginger as an example. There are other products you can plant. So if you invest, if you say there's a government program that says, if you want to plant ginger, just go to this particular store in your local government, sign your name. They will train you for 2 weeks, whatever, because it's very easy to do. They will give you the thing, you go and plant it, then they record your name, as the thing is growing, then they will buy it off taker. The government will buy it from you, or an agency will buy it from you, they will press it. It's not that difficult. That's how I started my oil palm plantation. It's a very large plantation now, almost 600 hectares. There's nothing complicated there. But you just have to get people to have things to do in their immediate environment. The problem with our employment is that it requires you to leave Ughelli and travel to Port Harcourt or travel to Abuja. You have to give Ughelli people job in Ughelli. Manufacturing people job in manufacturing. So when you are doing Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, all the people in Arepo, all those areas, they don't know what you are doing. But in the past, you know that TM Aloko used to be chief engineer in Western Nigeria. They will section the job. The Lagos-Ibadan road will be sectioned. So people in the Ijebu-Ode community, the iron rod, all those, they will supply from that area. That's how it used to be done. Exercise book, things like that. So what we are saying is that the problem with this model is that the elite now are used to having friends in government and getting 1 trillion naira contract, 500 billion naira contract. They're not used to a system where works are planned in such a way that you create. Look at when free education was introduced in the West.
I was just trying to understand your thinking when you gave it 18 months. Because, I mean, you know that you're going to work with different states. They all may not respond to you with the same speed at the same time. So there are processes. So when
no, it doesn't depend on them. I'm talking about federal programs. The states should do their own. For example,
but there's still bureaucracies in federal structure.
No, I'm the bureaucracy. I'm the president, for God's sake.
But you're not.
I'll give you a tag.
You still have agencies that you work with.
When the agencies, even the agencies we have now, with due respect, are faster than the presidency. Go anywhere. I'm not just criticizing them. If you go to an agency, they will tell you we are waiting for approval from above. It rarely happens that it is the other way. So you have to make the presidency very fast, very lean, very effective. So not people just fanning around you and helping you to chase people on the street. No, you actually have everybody who is an advisor is actually advising. So do you know the sector? Let me give an example. When they started free education, the free education program, that's why you have Onward Press, Listening Press, all sorts of press. It didn't take long for these presses to be set up. What you do is that they know that government is investing in this area. Government wants to produce exercise books for children, textbooks for children. So they set up the presses. And they have contracts with them. You produce 1 million exercise books for this amount, and things like that. So people make investment in those areas. And at that time, the central bank, all these agencies, were industrial bank, they were all reflecting on that. What I'm letting you know is that a rent-seeking economy, which we have set up for ourselves, is assuming that you can make money without producing anything. And if you don't produce anything, you cannot engage people. In addition to that, out of the 30 million jobs, I was in Washington, D.C., in a big ceremony with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, where I agreed with them some of the jobs which are used to help them all over the world to export to different parts of the world, that some of them can be brought to Nigeria. So you have people coming here working in call centers for foreign companies, coming here to do textile work, coming here to do basic medical supply systems. For example, if you sign up with 5 companies in Minnesota to allow you to come here and be handling medical records, you will employ almost 200,000 people whose job is just handling medical records, even though the medical delivery is not here. But you are housing medical records system here, it can be done. So it is not all the job that is traditional. Some of the jobs just to be in the value chain of global commerce. They don't come here because of the basic problem of they don't even know who they are going to talk to. So that's the idea. The idea is that you cannot say you want to eradicate poverty by letting people lie down and you don't get them engaged. And there are many areas. For example, the green belt that they are doing. If you convert it, you will see that you get carbon credit by making people plant trees. When I went to Ondo and I was talking to my people, I said, you know, let's plant 1 million trees every year. Yeah, they said, what are we doing with trees? We don't need trees. I told them, if you plant trees, there is international carbon credit for planting trees. We will invest in it. So people are now beginning to do such things. So a government has to do that in a aggregated way.
We've listened to your ideas, and I'm just wondering one way you get funding for it. For instance, you talked about the people who are repairing roads and trying to fix electricity in Ondo State. I don't know whether it's electricity or just...
Yeah, electricity, just street lights.
Okay, so how are they getting paid for that? I'm just a little curious.
Okay, what we did was to tax ourselves. That's for them, because there's no government power. So we raise the fund, and because efficiently managed is working. So at the government level, funding is not our problem. Accountability for the funding is the problem. You know that I don't want to repeat that here.
You tax yourselves to pay the people?
Yes. We tax ourselves to pay the people. It was a fundraising done, and we paid the people, and it's done. We're working on that. In about 2 or 3 years, you go to Odo, you will not see that, you will not see Porto.
Okay, so that's...
But what I'm letting you know that if it can be done at that volunteer level, at the government level, if you just stop 80% of the crude oil that is being stolen, that one they are not denying anymore. When I was saying they used to hide and deny it, if you capture the money you are losing in gas, if you capture the money you are losing in waivers and all of those, you have a budget deficit of 10 trillion, but you've written away 16 trillion in waivers for a few companies. You don't do such things. So if you manage that, if you let people stop stealing solid minerals, I can say to many people they are stealing lithium in Abuja here, and I have evidence, I have everything. I even wrote to mining inspectorate to say, look, these people here don't have anything, they are stealing lithium here. Nobody has answered. So if you capture all of that together...
You reported that to the police?
To the police, to the mining inspectorate that is supposed to make Nigeria very wealthy. I responded to them, sent the video, even saw the people, the video, foreigners, Nigerians, who are all combined. No response yet. So what I'm letting you know is
How did you know they were stealing it?
Because...
What did they have licenses?
They don't, because I have the acreage, and I see them coming there. So what a patriotic citizen should do is that if you have an acreage, and people come on your land and they start stealing minerals, because you know they are stealing the wealth of the people and people are getting poor, you tell the police and tell the government that these people are stealing here.
The acreage is yours, and that lithium is in that acreage.
Exactly, and it's nearby here. And they are stealing in Nasarawa here, they are stealing in Zamfara, they are stealing gold in Osun. What I'm bringing together is that I went to Focados the other time when they were saying, about a month ago, I was on the water for 4 hours. I went to Focados, I went everywhere. I saw all the ship with their ballast laden with oil. Everybody started telling me stories. I have videos. So the issue is that we have money. There's no problem about that at all. We have money. So it's just to divert this money from going overseas, where people go and get a small cut in some foreign account, to social investment in the people.
So, I mean, you've answered the money question.
Yes.
Your platform, SDP, reminiscent of the days of MKO, Abiola.
Yes.
Your son is in the race, by the way.
Yes.
Do you share the same ideas?
No, ideology is not inherited like wealth. You can't inherit your father's ideology. You can inherit his face, you can inherit his wealth. But I think...
You're a little to the left. You're about welfare,
also when I listen to...
socialist and welfarist.
When I also listen to Mr. Abiola, I think it makes sense. Maybe he should be on our side, but where he is, PRP is also not a bad place at all, because ideologically...
you said that you would have wanted to merge with the PRP.
We wanted to... PRP, Labour, when it was Labour, before it is now something else,
Labour Party is no longer Labour Party?
Oh, no. Labour is just a branch of PDP now. So maybe later, after this election, they'll go back to where they're supposed to belong. But maybe they made a compromise. That's their choice. But so these parties, what defines our interest is that there are two ways to prosperity. Through the people, or what Americans call trickle down. You let the rich people take all the money, and out of benevolence or something, they are going to create something. It has not happened anywhere before. So what we are trying to do is to say, if you can make Nigeria rich by abolishing poverty, which is not difficult, you have only 5 windows to abolish poverty. You must give people nutrition so that your economic condition does not affect your ability to feed and have good nutrition and raise children with good IQ.
How long is that going to take to abolish poverty for you?
To abolish poverty within 2 budgets. Because a hungry person stop being hungry when you get
2 budgets.
2 budgets.
2 years.
2 budgets. Yeah. Why? Because let me say something. Why are people poor? Let me explain to you why people are poor. People are not poor because they don't have billions in their account. People are poor because when they wake up in the morning, they can't have good food or food at all. They don't have good housing. They don't have access to medical care.
All right.
They don't have access to education. Tell me, which of these components cannot be made available in 2 years? It's not difficult.
All right. Mr. Adewale Adebayo is the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party. Thank you for coming on. And as always, we'd like to wish you all the best.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
All right. So we do have some... Amen. Yes, indeed. Some quick response. Alpha Cross says, I've been keenly watching and hearing political office seekers making huge promises without explaining the modus operandi of attaining such heights. The promises are not different from the past campaigners.
Olagunju Oladele says there is this narrative that the youth are deciding the presidential candidate in this 2023 election. And I ask, which? The online, urban, or rural areas? A narrative that is far more about perception than reality. Looking forward to 2023.
Well, aren't we all? Honestly, it's going to be interesting. Take a look at this one from Dr. Peter Howard. He's saying, while I agree that genuine positive change is long overdue in Nigeria, voters should be wary of humongous and overly ethnicizing or enticing promises, rather. Politicians can make a plethora of promises during electioneering campaigns. They can literally promise to make an elephant fly. It reminds me of Jumbo, right? I urge Nigerians to check both the pedigree of the parties and the character of politicians as they make their choice come 2023.
Pedigree and character, keywords. Let's hear this one from Henry Owanwu. He's talking about electioneering and getting it right. And he says, the recorded and emerging successes so far can be attributed to the revolutionary provisions in the Electoral Act 2022 that have, I believe, brought some level of sanity to some of the processes. Immediately after the 2023 elections, let's implore the CSOs, media, and other progressives to critically examine the process and outcomes with a view to identifying further areas where legal re-engineering can cause a positive change. And well, that can't be said enough, because the 2023 elections will not be the only elections that will be conducted. There are more elections ahead. Chamberlain?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for your comment as well. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Hey, go ahead and have a fantastic day. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Yes, make it count. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now.